Good morning, Baisai. No, so today we're doing Daled Amud alef. Today's Gemmorah Makkos Daf, Daled Amud alef. We're starting actually on the last three lines in Gemmorah Makkos Daf. Okay? So today's sugya, we're going to be discussing mikvah mainly. The dinning mikvah, the dinning of maim shuvim, literally drawn water. Any water that, a brief akdama, any water that was put in a kli, the Raisa, the Rabbanan will see, you can't use it for a mikvah. Okay. So Chazal were geyser on, it's a big machlokes what exactly the din is of maim shuvim. One thing's for sure, you normally need rainwater, natural water from a spring, a river, the sea. That's where you can be tovel into mitai you. If a mikvah has more than 50%, this is not according to all shittas, but this is the basics according to Rashi, others. This is how we're going to learn this sugya. If a mikvah has more than 50% maim shuvim, drawn water that was in a kli, then the mikvah is possible even doraisa. In other words, because we say this is called bottle bariv, maybe it's to do with bittel. If a mikvah has 49% drawn water, maim shuvim, then it's kosher midaraisa. Once it's got 51% or 50%, it's possible midaraisa. So Chazal, because they're worried that you're going to use a mikvah with 50% maim shuvim, they geyser even on 3 lug. Even if you have 3 lug, which is about, a lug is about a can, so 3 lug is roughly a liter. If you have a liter of water, which is the shear that a person can wash himself in, that's the minimum shear a person can wash himself in. He said if there's 1 lug in this mikvah, then the entire of maim shuvim, of drawn water, then the entire mikvah is going to be possible.
It could be any size mikvah?
So a mikvah we'll see exactly, but yeah, it doesn't matter how big.
If you say percentage, it's percentage. If you say it's a lug,
well, it's under with percentages, right? It's not a percentage thing. Now, normally a mikvah needs 40 saw. That's the minimum shear that a person can be tovel in. Is 40 saw. So if you put in 3 lug of maim shuvim, of drawn water in this mikvah, it's going to be possible. The question is when? At what stage does the water go into the mikvah? If it's the beginning that you're filling up the mikvah, you start off, you have an empty bar, and you put in even a revius, I think, that shows of maim shuvim, then the mikvah is possible. You don't need 3 lug, even a little cup of water shuvim at the beginning, that's going to passel the mikvah. And once you have a kosher mikvah completely, let's say you have a full kosher mikvah, then you could pour in as much maim shuvim as you want. Even if you pour in all the maim shuvim in the world, it's going to be kosher.
So all you need is the minimum amount for a kosher mikvah.
A minimum amount of what?
Of maim.
Once you have your kosher mikvah, it doesn't matter how much maim shuvim you pour in. Even 3 lug is not going to passel it. So right. the whole sugya of shloisha lugim is while you're filling it up. You started filling it up, you didn't get to the 40 saw yet. It's not yet a kosher mikvah.
What's 40 saw?
A mikvah needs to be tovel a person. You need at least 40 saw for it to be a kosher mikvah.
Like in liters.
40 saw, it's like a little bar. I don't know how many liters. I guess probably 100 liters, 80 liters, something like that. Enough that a person, an average guy, can dip in, fit in there. That's 40 saw. I can make the cheshbon what the saw is, but my head's not working this early in the morning. It's a nice amount. It's like a bunch of liters that a person could be tovel in, right?
Okay.
Now, so if you put in even a revis at the beginning, it's kosher. It's going to be possible. If you have a kosher mikvah, then you could pour in as much shuvim as you want to fill up the rest of the mikvah. So what are we talking about here about? We're talking about where they're in the middle of filling it up, it started to rain, the mikvah's filling up, and then you pour in your 3 lug of maim shuvim, then that's going to passel it. So we have a machlokes here between, we're going to see the machlokes, when you're passeling a mikvah with 3 lug, what do you look at? Do you look at the color of that water, or do you look at the content of the water? You'll see what I mean. To be careful, it looks like water. Let's say it's really water, but it doesn't look like water. Will it passel the mikvah or not?
One second. You're not allowed to pour anything in the mikvah. It's the rainwater.
While it's filling up?
When it's filled up already.
Once it's filled up, you can. Then you can. While it's filling up, you could put in less than 3 lug. If you put in 2 lug of water from a can, that's going to be fine. But 3 lug is possible.
Okay.
So let's see the Gemmorah. The Gemmorah says,
Filling up is getting to the
40 saw, yeah. So we're on Gemmorah Makkos base, 3 lines from the bottom. We're dealing with the reason why the Gemmorah brings us is another Memra of Rabbi Yehuda in the name of Rav. Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Rav. 4 lines from the bottom. Shleisha lugim maim psulim. You have 3 lug of posel water, which means maim shuvim. Why are they posel? It's shuvim. It's in a jar. It's in a can. It's in a kli. Shenafal ataychan kotev shel yayin. Now you've got the 3 lug.
1 second, where is it?
Here. So you have the 3 lug. You have 3 lug of maim shuvim. It should be a share that's enough to passel the mikvah, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've got 3 lug passel the mikvah. But you have 3 lug of maim shuvim of maim shuvim. Shenafal ataychan kotev shel yayin. Now in that 3 lug, a drop of yayin falls in. Kotev is a drop. You have like a couple of drops of yayin falls into a jug of water. So what happens? Umarein kamara yain. Now the entire mikvah looks like, the entire 3 lug now looks like yain, right? You take a jug of water, you put in 3 drops of wine, it's going to look like wine.
Okay.
So now that jug v'nafal lemikvah. Now that jug falls into the mikvah. So what's the din? Is that considered 3 lug to passel the mikvah or not? So Gemmorah says, Rav said, loy paslua. Since it looks like wine, it doesn't passel the mikvah. You have 3 lug of maim shuvim, but since you added a bit of wine, it's not going to passel the mikvah because it doesn't look like water. Chazal will only geyser on 3 lug.
Talking about water or any?
It's water. Here we're talking about water, and the maim shuvim in and of itself, it should passel the mikvah. It's maim shuvim. But since you added a drop of wine, and now that water looks like wine, so that doesn't passel the mikvah. Because it looks like wine.
What's again the definition of maim shuvim?
Any water that sat in a kli,
Okay.
sat in a jug. So the
wine
water's
also-
passel.
So wine also sits. in
Wine's
the-
not maim shuvim. Wine doesn't passel the mikvah with 3 lug.
Really.
Only maim shuvim. If geyser maim shuvim, you're going to make a whole mikvah out of maim shuvim. They want geyser that you're going to fill up you're not going to be toivel in yain. We were chayshish that you're going to start being toivel in maim shuvim. You're going to run your pipes to this mikvah, you'll be toivel in it. So because of that, they were geyser even on 3 lug. But the yain, if it's yain, it doesn't passel. Even a drop of, even if you have, so you have a jug of water, the jug will passel the mikvah, but as soon as you add a drop of wine, which changes the appearance and makes this whole thing look like a rosé wine, now that doesn't passel the mikvah anymore. So the Gemmorah asks, Massive law of Kana, if Kana asked for him, why is this rose-looking water different colored water? What do I mean? It says in the Mishnah, the Snan, Rabbi Yossi Omer, if you have 3 lug of colored water, so you have water with a bit of dye in it, and you put that in the mikvah, that's going to passel the mikvah. So why is it that if it's diluted wine, it doesn't passel the mikvah, but if it's colored water, it does passel the mikvah? That's the Gemara's kasha. What's the difference? My nafkamina. You've got either way. You have 3 lug of water. So why, if you add a drop of wine, kasha? You add a drop of dye, passel.
You explain it yourself.
Because so let's read the Gemara's answer. Amalei Rava. I'll tell you what the difference is. Maya de tzava mikri. Hossa Maya de tzava mikri. There it's called colored water. It's called water. You put in water, maim shuvim, it passes a mikvah. Hacha, in our case, Rav's din, chamra maziga mikri. It's called diluted wine. So diluted wine won't pass the mikvah. You're right, you've got, in theory, you have a content, you have 3 liters of maim shuvim. You have 3 lug of maim shuvim, rather. But still, it's considered wine. If it's wine, wine doesn't pass the mikvah. It's diluted wine. If it's colored water, so colored water does pass the mikvah. Okay. In other words, Chazal were only geyser. They didn't want you to do something that people are going to end up making a mistake. If you pour in wine into the mikveh, diluted wine, not diluted wine, no one's going to think, okay, now I can dip in a barrel of wine. People aren't going to make that mistake, right? But if you put in colored water, 3 lug, they're going to say, look, he dipped in colored water and it was fine, so water's fine. So we can fill up the water we can fill up the mikveh from the hose. No problem. That's what they would go. So now the Gemara says, Vatani. Surely we have a brisa. Vatani, the brisa says, Reb Chia says in the brisa, Haridu es ha-mikvah. Vatani Reb Chia, Haridu es ha-mikvah lepsul. That means that they made this mikvah pasul. So take a look, Rashi says 6 lines from the bottom. Vatani Reb Chia, Shloisha lugim mayim, shnofel adechan kot of yayin, Umaren kamar yayin, v'nofel ha-mikvah, Haridu es ha-mikvah, machsher lepsul. So Reb Chia seems to be arguing with his din of Rav. Reb Chia is arguing with Rav. He says, the Brisa of the Reb Chia says, if you add a drop of wine into this 3 lug, it's going to be pasul. So, how does Rav say this? How's Rav going to understand? Rav's argument of Brisa? The Brisa says it's pasul. Why does Rav say it's kosher? Again, we're talking about, you have a shear to pasul mikveh, you have 3 lug of water, that should be enough to pasul this mikveh. You add a drop of wine, Rav says now it's called wine, and it's kosher. Reb Chia in the Brisa says it's pasul. What are you going to do with Reb Chia? What are you going to do with this Reb Chia? So Amar Rava. Rava says, remember this name Rava, it's very important later on. Amar Rava like kasha. It's not shver. I'll tell you what's going on. Ha Reb Yochanan ben Nuri, ha Rabbanan. There's a machlekes in the Mishnah. Rabbanan or Reb Yochanan ben Nuri. Rav is going to hold like Reb Yochanan ben Nuri. And Reb Chia, like the Rabbanon. What's the Mishnah? The Snan says in the Mishnah, Shleisha lugin mayim. Now we're going to turn to Daled Amud. Shleisha lugin mayim. A person has 3 lug of water. Chaser kotov, missing a drop. He has exactly a share of 3 lug minus a drop. Remember, Rav was talking about case we have 3 full lug, right? Here he's talking about case you have 3 lug missing a drop. And then a few drops fall in it. You add 3 drops of wine. And now it looks like wine. And now it falls into a mikvah. It doesn't pasul the mikvah. It sounds like Rav, but it's very different, because here he's talking about a case where you have 3 lug minus a kortov, and you added a kortov to make up the whole share. So the diak is, the Gemara is going to say in a few lines, I'll skip you these few lines. The diak is that only if it's missing a kortov does it become, is it loy paslu, is it not possible? But if you had 3 full lug, then it's going to be pasul, which is going to be a machlekes on Rav. Rav said even with 3 full lug, if you added a drop of wine to your 3 full lug, it's kosher. Here the dik is only if it was chaser kortov is it kosher. But if you had 3 full lug, then it would be pasul. V'chein, and now a second in this Mishnah. V'chein gimel lugin mayim. You have 3 full lug chaser kortov, missing a drop. Shenafal ataychem kortov chalav. A drop of milk fell into these lita, right? Umarein kamar mayim. And now it doesn't look like yayin, it looks like water. I did an experiment this morning. You take a liter of water, you put in a drop of milk, it's not going to change the appearance at all. It's still going to look exactly like water. Maybe you can detect some cloudiness, a tiny amount, but in essence, it looks like I was making a coffee and I had a drop of milk left on my teaspoon, and there was a jug of water that I was like, oh, let's do the experiment. I dropped it in, gave it a stir. Very hard to tell if there's anything there. It looks like water. So the same thing here, you drop in a bit of milk, it looks like water, as opposed to the ratio which looks like yain. So the ratio is you drop in and put in a drop of water, a drop of wine. The same as you put in a drop of water, a drop of milk. So now this concoction, v'nafal mikvah, lai paslua, in both cases, it's not pasul. That's the Mishnah. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri is arguing on the Rabban. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, Omer, hakol heilech acha mare. You never look at, it doesn't matter what the content is. It doesn't matter what the real content of this concoction is. What matters is what it looks like. Therefore what? Therefore, the way Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri is going to learn is, if it looks like yayin, it's yayin. If it looks like water, it's water. So in the case, l'chayri is arguing on the sefer. The sefer, the Tanakama, the Rabbanan say it's going to be kosher with the milk, because you don't have 3 lug of water. Says Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, I don't care, you don't actually have 3 lug of water. The milk won't pass the mikvah, only water passes the mikvah. But since the milk brings it to the share of 3 lug, and it looks like you got 3 lug of water now, the mikvah is going to be passel. Okay? So Rav's going to hold like who? So the Havamina is now, the Rav's going to hold like Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. That what? You look at how it looks. If it looks like yayin, kasha. If it looks like wine, passel. So, says the Gemmorah, Hamibai by Rav Papa. Rav Papa asked, the way Rav Papa, Rav Tani Chosakot of Reisha. Rav Papa said, did Rav learn in the Reisha of this Mishnah Chosakortov? Did he learn the Mishnah like we just said, that the Reisha, we're talking about Yain, it was actually missing a Kortov, or even Avashleisha Lugin, the Tanakama apostle? But if you have 3 full lug in the Tanakama, then it's going to be apostle. Because the Tanakama wouldn't say Chosakortov, if even when it's got a Kort, even when it's Shalim, it's Kasha, right? So the Diik is Avashleisha Lugin, the Tanakama apostle. And that's going to argue on Rav. In other words, if the deacon of Tanakam is right, only when it's chasa kortov is it going to be kasha, but when you have 3 lug, it's going to be pasul. In that case, Rav's arguing on Tanakama, and he holds like v'asur b'yechanan l'meimah kol eila chachamara. Rav amar Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. And is Rav hold like Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri? I think the Gemara doesn't spell this out, but it's a little bit of a daichak to say Rav holds like Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. You want to go with the chachamim, you're a yochad v'rabim. Why is Rav paskening here like Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri? Because the dik from the Tanakama again is that if you would have 3 full lug, it would be pasul. And Rav says if you have 3 full lug plus a drop of wine, it's kasha. So says the Gemara, Dilman, or I'll tell you there's a different way to learn this, to read this Mishnah. Rav, like Tani Chasakotov. Rav, when he learned this Mishnah, he wasn't gaires the fact that in the Tanakama, in the Reisha, it's Chasakotov. For Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, keep polig as Sefer, and Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri is only arguing on the Sefer. So in other words, the Reisha of the Mishnah you read like this. You read it again. Shleisha lugim mayim, shenafal techa kotav yayin. It's going to be kasha, leipas lua, and Rav agrees with that. So Rav's going to agree with the Tanakama now. The Tanakama says even if it's not Chasakotov, it's going to be kasha. So he takes out the words. Maybe Rav takes out the words Chasakotov, and then so what's the machlokes then going to be? The Tanakama and Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. So Rav loitani Chasakotov Reisha. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri keep little gaseifu to palig. So what's Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri going to be arguing on? Only the Sefer. Why? Because the Sefer says when you have, according to, it turns out that the second way to learn this Mishnah is that the second way, this way to learn the Mishnah, if it's got 3 lug Chasakotov and you added mayim, so if you're the Tanakama, it's not pasul. Why is it not pasul? Because you don't have 3 lug of yayin shuvim. But if you're Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, it is pasul. Because you only look at how it looks. It looks like you've got water, 3 lug of water here.
Okay.
But in the Reisha, everyone's going to agree it's pasul. So this way, okay, let's see. It says the Gemmorah. Rav Papa mibayle. So Rav Papa had this kasha. How did Rav learn this Mishnah? Is Rav going to say also lefi the Tanakama and also lefi Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, also lefi Rabban and also lefi Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri? So Rav Papa mibayle. Rava pshitle. To Rav it was pashat. To Rav it was pashat that the first way we read the Mishnah was right. Why? Because Rava answered. Rava said, "What's the machlokes over here on Gemmorah Makkos Daf?" Rava was the one that said, "You know what? We got a kasha from Rabbi Chia on Rav, so Rav is going like Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, and Rabbi Chia holds like Rabbanan." So he learns with this chasa kortov. The first way that this Mishnah is talking about chasa kortov. So that's how Rav obviously learned the Gemara. The Rav Pshitale. So Rav Papa had the kasha, he didn't know. Rav was Pshitale. Amar Rav Yosef. Now Rav Yosef comes and says, Amar Rav Yosef. Lo yishmi ali hashmaita. I never heard pshat over here. Rashi explains that Rav Yosef forgot all his learning. Rav Yosef was a great Amira, but he forgot his Talmud. Rav Yosef came along and said, I never learned this. I never heard this from... He was also Talmud Rav Yehuda. And he says, I never heard this from Rav Yehuda. Amalei Abaye, Rabbi told him, At Amrsla, yeah, you told us this b'shem Rav Yehuda. At Amrsla nihilei, v'achri Amrs, this is what you said. The Rav loitani chasakotav, v'achri Amrs nihilei. The Rav loitani chasakotav, Rav didn't learn chasakotav in the Reisha. It does not say chasakotav. Rabbi Yochanan, as Sefer Polig, and Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri is only arguing in the Sefer in the case of milk. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri doesn't argue in the case of wine. In the case of wine, everyone agrees that it's never going to pass all the mikvah because it looks like yain. So what's Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri arguing? Only in the Sefer that the Tanna Kama wants to be materet, the milk's not going to pass all, and Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri comes along and says you can use the shear of the milk to pass all this mikvah. So says the Gemara. V'Rav dama k'divrei hakol. In that case, Rav is going to hold like everyone. That's how Rabbi Yosef taught Abaye. Abaye is always coming to argue on Rav. So Abaye says, no, Tasha, the Rav is going l'divrei hakol. Now, a little bit of a new memra over here, but it's still to do with mikvah. For Amar Yehuda, Amar Rav. Another memra of Yehuda Rav. Chovis melei mayim. You've got a big barrel of water, of mayim shuvim. Shnafel liyam hagadol. It falls into the ocean. Hatoy v'sham lo yosel lo tefila. If someone goes into this, he dips into the yam, into the sea, lo yosel lo tefila. He's not yaitza. He's got to dip in where the barrel of water is. He pulls a barrel of water into the sea. He goes in right there. He goes into the water where he pulled the barrel of water. Lo yosel tefila. So it says a Gemmorah Chayshinon. Why not? There's a chashash. It looks like it's a shema. Chayshinon l'shleisha lugin shelo yibu makom echad. V'chayshish the what? You have 3 lug in one place. It's not going to move. Shleisha lugin shelo yibu makom echad. V'davka, says the Gemmorah liyam hagadol. That's only in the sea. The koi v'kaima. The water doesn't move in the ocean. I guess even with waves, the water basically stays in the same place. It just goes up and down, right? It's not talking about like right by the sand, I guess, where the water looks like it's moving. Farther out, you pour the water in. Maybe it's not such a wavy day. The water is staying right there. You jump in. Avol nahara ba'alma loy. If you pour shleish lugim into a river, and the river is flowing, so then as soon as you pour the water in, it's now moved, right? You go into this mikveh in the river. Now you're no longer in that water. It's actually a machlokes if it's because some Rishonim says because in the river, in the sea, where the salt water is heavy, so that stays down, and then the lighter, the less salty water is going to stay on top in the same place. But in the river, where the water is all mesukim, it's not salty, the water is not heavier, it's all going to get mixed up. That's how some Rishonim want to learn. There's a bit of a nafkamina l'maisa. So, Tanya Namahachi, we have a brisa that says a similar din. Chovis melei yayin. If you have a barrel full of wine, shnafel liyam hagadol, that falls into the sea. Hatoyvel sham lo yosel lo tefila. If you dip into that barrel where the barrel is, you're not yaitza. Why? Chayshin l'shleisha lugin she'uvin shelo yibu makom echad. We're worried you're going to have 3 lug of yain in the same place. So you're not Yetza, you're not Taivel. That's not called your Taivel. And then what happens? V'chein, and in the same case, Kikash al-Shuma shenafal sham. This guy was Taivel in that sea, and then he puts his bread in the water, not recommended, but he puts his bread in it. So what's committed in? Tomei. Now the bread's Tomei. Not only does he not become Tahor, But now the water is kilutame. So, my v'chein, what do you mean v'chein? What does it mean v'chein kikush teshuma apostle? So, ma dutemi, you might think, hosam uki gavra cheskase, achazake, this man has a cheskas tame. When this guy dips in the mikvah in the sea, he's tame. So we don't know if he dipped in a kosher mikvah, so he's gonna remain tame. You always give the guy his status quo. He started off tame, he's gonna remain tame. But uki gavra chazaka, acha uki truma chazaka. But the bread, before it went into the mikvah, it was tahor. So maybe that remains tahor. You might think that this mikvah now is a suffix. Does it metayr him? So you might think that the man, he started off tame. Now he went to a suffix mikvah. He should remain tame. But but the bread you put into this water, it started off tar. So now it should keep its chazak of tar. Komash Malan says Gemmorah, no. Komash Malan, it becomes tame. Now Rashi explains a little bit of a trying to delve a little bit, see what's going on over here. Rashi explains what's happening. He pours his barrel of water in the first half. He pours a barrel of water into the ocean, and he's toivel there. So take a look in the last narrow line in Rashi.
Inside the bar.
No, he pours the water into the ocean. Now he dips into the ocean.
In the same place.
The same places he just poured it. So says Rashi, the last narrow line, two above the last narrow line. Lo yosale tefila. So Rashi, you see the Rashi above that. Toivo sham ba'isa malkim. He dips in the place where the water is. Lo yosale tefila. Shem kol mayim shoy b'chavis. Maybe all the water is sitting there together. Now Rashi throws in something. V'shema bazer roishay v'ruboy b'mayim shuvim. Maybe his head and limbs went into the mayim shuvim. V'zeh echad min ha'paisim es truma, and this will passel truma. So what the Rishonim want to explain is that Rashi is explaining a Mishnah in Maseches Zovim. The Mishnah says like this: if you're tahar, 100% tahar, and then you dipped in mayim shuvim, reishiv urubai, you had the most of your body, you went into the swimming pool, now you're tamei. So with this barrel of water, I guess Rashi has a kasha. The guy dipped in the mikvah, in this ocean. He didn't touch any seawater. What happened here? Right? And there's another problem. As we said at the beginning of Shir, if you have a kosher mikvah, the sea's a kosher mikvah, now you pour in all this mayim shuvim, so that mayim shuvim should become tar now. That mayim shuvim becomes a regular mikvah. So who cares if this guy went in? So clearly midoraisa, if he's tummy when he jumps in the mikvah, midoraisa now he's tar. Midoraisa is good. He went into the sea. He's tar. The mayim shuvim becomes like a part of the mikvah, right? The mayim shuvim's clean. He's tar. Says Rashi, you're right. Midoraisa, this is how the Rishonim are understanding Rashi. Midoraisa, you're right. He's 100% tar. But midrabanan they were geyser. Even if you're tar, someone is tar, and he goes into the swimming pool, now he's tamei. Rosh, that's what it says. Once you put your Rosh up, so even they went into the sea, he jumped in, he goes 3 feet down. When he comes back up, he goes through mayim shuvim. Now he became tamei again. That's how Rashi learns. He's going in, he becomes tar, but now he becomes tamei. So there's a few kashas of the Rishonim do not like this.
Mayim shuvim by definition is tamei.
The water itself is not tamei.
Why he becomes tamei?
The Chazal Geyser, that I guess we don't want him being toivel in mayim shuvim. And they said it's a mission of Zovim. If you're toivel in mayim shuvim, or if you pour 3 lug of water on a guy, you're tamei. Even if you tar. So that's the question they ask. So the Ritva brings a few kashas. Why does he have to talk about someone tamei jumping in? Even if he was tar and he jumps in, he should be tamei. That's the first kasha. Second kasha they say is, what do you mean lo yosalei tefillah? It's yel salei tefillah. The Gemara says lo yosalei tefillah. it should say also like tefillah, but he's tamei anyway. Oh, he jumped in this water, he went down, became tahar, also like tefillah, but now he's tamei, midrabanon. It's mashmeh, and also you'd read this, you think he's tamei daraisa. Really, he's not tamei daraisa, he's just positive, there's a psul darabon to eat truma. He can't eat truma darabon, that's the missions of him. He's possible to eat truma. And the other kasha is, which you should all be asking, is the Gemmorah says at the end, you might think you should give this guy the chazaka, right? You might think he has a cheskas tuma, so when he goes in the water, he should maintain his cheskas tuma, because you don't know if it's a good mikvah. But you put the bread in, the bread at a cheskas kashas, you put the bread in, and that now should become, it should stay tahar, because it should keep the cheskas tahar. So the third kasha of the mikvah says, this guy jumps in the mikvah, he goes under the maim shuvim. Now he's for sure tomei. Now he's for sure tahar. Right? Mm-hmm. Now you have a suffix if when he comes back up through this maim shuvim, does he become tomei now? So what's his chazaka now? Now he's got a cheskes tahira. He for sure was tahar. He for sure was tahar. The maim shuvim is sitting on the top. He goes in the water. He becomes tahar. Mm-hmm. Now you've got a suffix. Was there maim shuvim there? Does that make him tomei? It's exactly the other way around. His chazaka now is a cheskes tahira, not a cheskes tuma. Rashi seems to be saying he's got a cheskes tuma. No, he's got a cheskes tahira here. And let's just take a look at Taisus kasha. When top Taisus on the left side was in Tahait. Top Taisus says, Amar v'yud amarav, choves male mayim, kach girsas akuntras, v'kamar lo yasalei tefillah, yeshua maim shuvim. When he taivels, he's not yet a maim shuvim. V'loi nira. The hamidah shavil hu ashaka k'mechubar metayra mituma, hu adin le'inyan tefillah nami. Since Chazal said that once this maim shuvim is mechubar to the mikvah, it all becomes tahar. So even when he's taivel in it, of course he becomes tahar. There's no havim says Taisus that this guy should be tamei. The water becomes tahar. So now skip down Taisus understands it. Taisus has a whole different shot. Take a look in Lekach Nira. It's like the sixth narrow line. We're going to finish in a minute. Lekach Nira the Gasin Milsad Rav the Chovis Male Yayin. He doesn't. He changes the girsa. He has a different girsa. It wasn't a Chovis Male Mayim that fell in the sea. It was a Chovis Male Yayin that fell in the sea. But Lekach Lo Yasalei Tefillah. That's why it wasn't a good tefillah. You see a big barrel of wine, red wine in the sea. He jumps in it. He's not taivel. Demeyam kovu v'kaimu. It stands still. V'shem adayin utzav v'ayim b'mekayim. The yain didn't move. He jumps in the yain. V'isa nikur. You can see the guy didn't jump in the ocean. If it's all mixed up, when you say the water gets mixed up and it's like it all becomes kosher maim, that's when you can't see. You don't know where the maim is. You don't know where the shuvim is. But when the guy jumps in a barrel of wine in the ocean, you see, he jumped in yain. He didn't jump in water. That's how Taisus understands the Gemmorah. Okay, shkarach habayisai. Have a wonderful day.